So, what is the impact of AI so far in your business? Does it sometimes fall short of expectations? Is AI another hype? Can AI help accelerate your career? And if you're a leader, how do you lead AI projects or manage an AI enabled workplace? So, my brother and I have been looking at these questions for years, so we decided to collaborate and tackle AI from various angles. Hello, San Diego.
Hello, Philadelphia.
So, let's do this.
Let's do it.
So we both work for AI focused companies, and we will have a monthly segment looking at AI trends, tech, business uses, careers. So Arpa, tell us a bit about your background.
Well, spent the last 2 decades in the hardware side, mostly semiconductors, high-tech companies. And if I'm looking at it, I'm also a recovering management consultant and an executive coach. But really, what I'm passionate about is how can we unlock value from technology?
All right, and I have many of you know I have 20 plus years in software. I'm a recovering management consultant myself, and half my career I work with private equity firms on value creation from technology. So all of this will come back here as we trying to figure out and help you find ways from technology and specifically AI and how to accelerate your projects, your career, your impact at work. To get real about what all these emerging technologies are and how to separate hype from reality. We also want to look into how to create value and eliminate waste and how to learn from all of this to improve all of our careers around AI. And some of us, hopefully most of you, will become better leaders leading AI driven organizations. So let's talk about all of those. So, with introductions out of the way, we're going to start with my brother, with what caught your attention in the last few weeks.
Well, as you said, we are both passionate about value creation, and that's the question that I keep getting: that is AI overhyped? Is AI really creating value? Where does it really show up? And super interesting because where we saw the initial impact and the highest potential is code generation. But there's a lot of open question right now in the legal field about copyright, IP protection, how to handle that. There's one area that we see that is still a bright spot, and there's a latest research just came out from Meta, and they saw that when it creating code for testing, 70% of the code that was generated, the Meta team can deploy it right away, and it improved every single aspect of testing. So that's super interesting, and I think it's super actionable. On the flip side, we have seen companies deploying Microsoft Copilot, enabling these large language models. And as Microsoft changed its model, it became even more available actually for everyone. This is where I expected a lot of breakthroughs and a lot of productivity. But right now, we see that besides some creative work and small improvements, uh, it really did not deliver the expectations. So that got me thinking about what is really missing. And part of it is probably a skill gap, part of it is an expectation gap. I think we were very used to that. We interact with software and computers as a one and done solution, ask a question and get an answer. And that interaction model is just not the right one for these generative tools. Partially, it's a skill gap, which is there is a way to unlock value. I mean, it's amazing when we see the spike of people learning prompt engineering and learning a new interaction model. So we will come back to that, but that is really the dilemma I see, that which tools we can use to create real value.
All right. Well, go Microsoft Copilot. It seems like every one of us have it, and we use it. Poems come to mind. Really good, and summarizing content. But dollars and cents, who knows? But speaking of value, let's step back. My favorite topic is about any technology change is who actually makes money. So companies already make money deploying AI tools? Is the question you raised. I'm raising the question in if you look at the whole end-to-end world about everybody doing AI, everybody claims to do AI, who actually started making money? So interestingly enough, the LLM vendors like OpenAI and others don't make money. If you think about it, there are
Yeah.
500,000 open source models out there, thousands of proprietary ones. Right now, most private models are charging $20 a month. But if you're a major Microsoft customer, you get Copilot for free, meaning you get ChatGPT 4 Pro and whatever is the next layer is going to be for free for now. So it's hard to argue that LLM vendors make money, but they are sort of the essence, the linchpin in value creation, right? It reminds me of the early internet days where
Mm.
nobody that were, I mean, the end users, internet was free and all the value creation somehow materialized other ways. And we'll come back to that. And they're likely going to be paywalls, and we're already seeing them for pro and ultra and executive platinum levels of LLMs. But is that really used by you and me? Or even for most businesses, is the average mid-sized company, manufacturing company, tier three automotive manufacturer, are they going to use ultra pro level LLMs? Unlikely. So they'll tap into the freemium segment. So somebody has to make money and somebody gets to get paid. So who makes money right now? We all know it. Compute.
Yeah.
Running these, obviously running inference or running in general training or inference models on hyperscalers, Azure, AWS, GCP, they certainly make money. I call it the AI rent. They get paid. There are no discounts. You're never getting a special. Hey, why don't you try out um, inference for a while? It will give you it free. There's no such thing. So hyperscalers get paid. Hardware gets paid. And there are
Yeah.
no free NVIDIA H100 chips out there. I'm not aware of them. So NVIDIA, or they don't even discount this. Hey, we're running a special. It's a year-end sale. No such thing, right? So hardware gets paid. Even the hyperscalers' own chips will get full value, and anybody who makes GPUs or specialized chips, TPUs, will make money. Um, Companies, who knows? Like we don't know if the business customers are making money yet with generative AI. There are many stories out there. So whether around customer service or other areas where we've seen back office, some of the AI driven automations, maybe that's there. Investors, well, public company investors have made money, so public stocks
Mhm.
have been soaring, not snoring. If you look at Nvidia or Microsoft or others, so they are, and private AI company valuations have gone up 10x, right? So going from 10 times revenue to probably 100 more, who knows? Consumers likely will not pay. They may not question whether they get value. A lot of the
Mm.
applications for consumers are very entertainment centric. Um, and they're unlikely they're going to pay for anything. So they'll probably be a product again, like in the internet days. A lot of the consumer payment will come through advertising. So this is really interesting to watch this, because at the end of the day, the way I look at the business to business to business to business to consumer value chain, all the payment ultimately comes from consumers. So how the consumers will end up paying is going to be probably paying more for the same kind of services. So the same we went from free internet to dial up at $9 a month to now $100 a month for internet. It created a global market for, I don't know, a billion times $100 a month. It does add up, right? So that pays for the internet. Similarly, very likely you're going to see the same monetization. Consumers will pay it, maybe a rent, but they may also be products of these LLMs through targeting ads and otherwise. So that's sort of, obviously key focus for me. I love figuring out as a recovering economist how this all works. But that's monetization, AI monetization. How do you think about this?
I agree with you that I think right now the monetization model is evolving and it's undefined. It's not clear who will capture the value. And I see that you have to pay the piper. So hardware and the hyperscaler will get paid. And then the question is where the value division happen above it. And I agree with you that some areas are emerging super interesting, and people usually pay for premium. So I expect that while the vanilla model will be available for all of us, when we want to do more with the model, have more precision, more capability, that might be a freemium market. Also, what I see more and more emerging is what people build on the top of the LLMs, whether it's apps or some special capabilities, which will come then to when do we go beyond content creation? Because content creation is only creating so much value. So it's an interesting question that will people pay when AI can do things, when agents is coming up? I mean, it's super interesting if I'm looking at research where right now OpenAI start to optimize its model for agent support, where right now research is coming up that the answer is not better LLM, larger models, but maybe multiple agents trying to solve things and see what works, how to optimize that cycle. I don't know. What do you see?
It's interesting, paying for stuff. You and I slightly disagree on this. We'll see how this plays out on freemium, how much people will pay. You may end up being right, but it's also raises the question, do you have problems for AI to solve that's worth paying for, right? So it's going to be interesting both for businesses and for us as consumers. Like, do we have a big enough problem? Maybe doing homework for a deadline that may get us through to college is worth paying for. So there are going to be consumer examples, I'm sure. But ultimately, it actually brings up the question: is how do we make sure AI actually does stuff?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. We all remember a couple of weeks ago we had lazy GPT, and if anybody watches this years from now, it's not going to understand what that was. But lazy GPT was, for a while, GPT actually created stuff. You asked it, to write a Shakespearean sonnet about business work. It could do that. And now, for a couple of weeks, it actually acted lazy and said, "Well, this is how you would write a sonnet, and this is how it would work." Right? So it got weird, but it reminded you that we all got used to, even in content creation, of GPT actually creating stuff, and that's the expectation. That's the norm. Is it should do stuff, and beyond content creation, when it becomes agents, like, you expect it to perform stuff. So in consumer life, all my bills and data and receipts, everything is on my computer. I should be able to tell a computer, do my taxes. There's nothing I need to provide. It knows all the tax code. It knows all my receipts. It knows how I filed all my taxes, but it doesn't do that. There's no application just yet for that. For a variety of reasons, we'll get into in the future about context windows and stuff. But that's sort of what you want. That should be the norm. AI should do stuff for you. Same with business, and the same is true with businesses. You have all your business transactions. Most companies now, everything is digital. You should be able to have AI handle incoming customer complaints, figure out how to solve them, how we solved them in the past, what was the best way, when was the customer happy about it, and instruct the underlying computer systems to perform the best way to handle that complaint, run through a variety of ERP and CRM and customer success systems. That should be the norm versus you doing point fixes in your processes. So that I think should be the norm, and that will be the norm. And I'm all a fan of autonomous enterprise. I was a fan of autonomous enterprises when they were DAOs in the blockchain days, right? So I think we're going to get closer to it, but we should hold that standard high up versus just making it create meeting summaries or poems or things like that. And there's even view out there that ERP will be gone in 10 years because AI can construct the processes on the fly, the best way we can handle certain things, and understands all the connections, the APIs to underlying systems. So I'm really, really bullish about making GPT do stuff. But that raises the question: what if it does stuff wrong?
Absolutely. And I think even if you think about making GPT do stuff, probably it's not going to be just GPT. I mean, one thing we see right now in the marketplace that other players that are well established in the market that used to focus on workflow management or automation. Now you start to connect the dots between, hey, how can we bring together content creation? How can we bring together decision making? How can we bring together closing the action loop, closing the last mile? And that's where I expect the most improvement in 2024. But you raised a really good question. Now that we trust AI not just to come up with an answer or a recommendation or a poem, but us actually close that loop, what could happen? And just this week came out a study that is not actually reassuring. It was a joint collaboration between Stanford, Northeastern, Georgia Institute of Tech, and what they did a war simulation. And the goal was to negotiate and manage the conflict between 8 different countries, fictional countries, and see how GPTs could find a way to negotiate. And the simulation ended with a nuclear strike. And when they asked Komoda why they chose that course of action, the answer was, well, that was the best way to establish long term peace. So I'm really happy right now that GPTs are creating content and they do not have the ability to execute. And I think that will lead to a significant shift in our approach to regulation and legislation. I mean, just right now, more than 42 states have actually well over 400 AI related regulation in the books. And uh, that is reassuring in one way because I think our legislative is a lot more aware of potential risk, a lot more aware than we were at social media when we were kind of late to wake up and see should we put some guardrails around it. On the other hand, there are some concerning historical learnings, for example, from Europe. When Europe, many times in the past, overregulated technology, and it cost them technology and innovation leadership. So I think in these discussions, whenever we see new regulation, it would be interesting to see: are we walking the line? Are we finding the right balance by claiming and supporting innovation leadership, which we want to do, but also putting the right guardrails so the best way to achieve world peace is not a nuclear strike.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we've seen that. I mean, blockchain was a good example. The first thing countries go to is regulation, which doesn't actually help with the technology development. Technology
Yeah.
should come to a point where it actually solve these issues. And one of the ways, and there are multiple things I know we are passionate about. One is regs. I'll talk about regs, and I know you talk about mini LLMs. But one of the like, unless you lived under the rock, if you focus on AI and you don't know what regs are, obviously you're under the rock. But it's what's called retrieval augmented generation, and it's a relatively old concept in AI days, like it's 2020. But the idea is that when you prompt an AI, let's say GPT for this conversation, when you prompt GPT to perform a task or answer or create content, it would be super useful for that AI not to rely on just its generic knowledge in the training set, but you actually provide the right components for that answer. So you're asking it to perform an analysis on a certain industry. If you could provide the data to you in that to use in an analysis that's current, that's comparable, maybe some benchmark data, it will give you a better answer, right? And this is the concept of RAG: is you actually you actually prepare the right kind of data and even the right kind of questions and a search component, so you prompt better. But it's different. Regs are different from prompt engineering. It's different from fine tuning. So we will actually have a separate episode to talk about reg, prompt engineering, fine tuning, more like layman terms. What does it mean if you are trying to deploy these technologies? You're not a data scientist, right? But it does reduce hallucinations. It does reduce mistakes in broad terms. And it also, very importantly, from a value perspective, reduce your cost of compute, which is the rent you pay to your hyperscalers, right? So, and it's a big deal because you could put all the data you ever need, including the current data, give it to the GPT, assuming your context window can handle it. It's a massive cost to use that and use that information and process it by the GP for the large language model, because it would be it would run on large hyperscaler compute models. So it's a very exciting space. It's one way you can make sure that LLMs don't make so many mistakes. And there are other ways. So RAG is one way. We'll come back to this in a future episode. But I know another way is Arpad. You love smaller specialized LLMs. What's that all about?
Well, for me, these two things are related. If you think about any enterprise application beyond creating exciting pictures for your PowerPoint or a nice poem to entertain your team, you need to ground these models, because what we find is a very interesting challenge. These pre-trained models demo very well, because when you have a question, a generic question, it can give you an immediate answer. And it's so easy to confuse fluency with knowledge. and fluency with accuracy. And for everyday use cases, receipt generation, trip planning, that's good enough. For a specific enterprise use case, it's very important that, as you said, we bring in specific data from the enterprise that we want decisions or analysis to be done to, as well as to make sure that we ensure somehow the accuracy of these models. This is why RAG is very important. And there is always a trade off. There is a trade off between how much we can lean in and leverage the underlying language model to give us better reasoning, better answers, or how much we can get a quick and accurate solution. So, yes, as you said, I'm a big fan of maybe smaller models that are developed for specific purposes. And there's right now a lot of emerging research that's definitely a key focus area about models that represent different part of knowledge base. And how can we bring them together? How can we find and approach a question from different perspective to find the right answer? So there's a huge emergence between models that represent multiple expertise, linking it to a grounding knowledge to RAG, and how to optimize all this to make it an enterprise solution. So I'm very excited because I think we should dedicate a full session on that because that's probably the number one path most enterprises walk on, and that's not a simple one. So I would love to simplify it to understand what trade-off decisions worth making.
All right, maybe spend an episode on going through the 500,000 specialized LLMs on Hugging Face or not. But all of this raises a question, right? It's like, how do you learn all this stuff? And depending on your role in the company, how do you become a better AI leader, leader at all levels, right? And we all have to go through reskilling. You know, my brother and I had this challenge. Let's take an AI course every week, and we all have to do this, even though we spend X number of years in tech. And you need to learn about this to be a better AI enabled employee. How do you perform your role better, your job better? Because you're going to be up against other people that will know how to use this technology better. And that's your competition. It's not the tool that competition. Your competition is the person next to you. Is going to be good, savvy at this. The other is how do you become a business savvy data scientist? I mean, all of this AI change is a boon for data scientists. They are finally at the fore in businesses. Oftentimes they don't understand business itself, and they don't understand. You know, if you ask them a question, okay, design an optimal order management process with AI for us. It's not a language they're used to. So how do you do that? And all of us, how do we become better leaders in a workforce that's going to have a lot of AI? And how do we create the right performance structure? How do we make sure that we know who's performing better, even when everybody has access to the world's knowledge in so many weeks? So we'll talk about this becoming a better AI leader in the very next episode, or so we think. And what we'd love to hear is what's top of mind for you. What should we talk about as we take this collaboration off the ground? And please leave us a comment and subscribe. And with that, Philadelphia is checking out.
And so is San Diego. See you next time.